Welcome to this video. We modern humans are in fact, genetically speaking, very recent, like never significantly more than 19,000 years old, most probably like 4,000 years old. That means much more recent than any out of Africa theory. So our, so-called, Y-DNA atom in our out of could be as young as 4,000 years old and never more than 19,000 years old. We only were able to find out in 2021 because of ancient DNA research, David Reich, 2021. This very recent origin of 4,000 years is the case for at least some Western Europeans, mainly those of the Atlantic facade, but could include the Mediterranean facade, including the Black Sea. But when considering all modern humans, we can safely conclude that no significant amount is genetically unchanged, not hybridized, with the right to claim a genetic or scientific atom or out of, for longer or more than 19,000 years, end of the latest ice age. These modern humans are so young or recent that they frequently present recessive factors or genes like blonde hair and blue eyes, or Rhesus negative blood types as better known examples. If their origin, had been older, they would not present these recessive factors anymore, maybe unless they never mixed or interbred or lived very isolated like possibly the Basques, certain Caucasians and Moroccans. One of the proofs comes from ancient DNA research of David Reich in 2021. At first, the population turnover event that rendered these newcoming modern humans was an unprecedented and never repeated success. First, I will look at it as if it were a kind of planned military coup of the whole world, like Hitler and the Nazis, but long before, much bigger and contrary to the Nazis, with a successful ending. From this military standpoint, the population turnover event was a complete success. Possibly so until subgroups began to fight amongst each other. A possible early example could be Troy, Greece. But it also could have been much more general during and collaborating to the Bronze Age collapse. What I consider the end of the success is when the Global Imperium initiative takers, Inca-like Imperium, began to retrocede or go into decline. You probably think that an Inca-like Imperium is weird, but that is because all this past was carefully destroyed, wiped out and covered up, not least by religions. I hypothesize that the decline was in full swing around the year 1000, or 1000 BP, when the Mayan Empire started to decline or fall apart, that is by then merely a signal, because things had gotten global long before. The influence from the Americas got weaker and possibly the Vikings, Wends, felt that too because they were closer and more related, trade, than all or most others. Once the Imperium in the Americas went into decline, the Europeans had better chances to conquer whatever part that until then was dominated or influenced but also protected by the Inca-like Imperium before. The Vikings made efforts to put some hold on the Americas and Greenland before, but never were successful or able to sustain. I hypothesize that before the Conquests, around the year 1500, private initiatives, possibly pirate-like, not countries yet, just as an example like Belgian King Leopold, but long before, Y-DNA haplogroup R, started to attack, robbing and tearing apart the former Global or Inca-like Imperium. While the Global or Inca-like Imperium could have been very long or old, even millions of years, with ups and downs and possibly total collapses, we should remember that Homo Erectus managed to navigate all over the world already 2 million of years ago, and Homo Erectus back then had larger brains than we modern humans have today. Once the peoples, that were the ones that turned over other peoples, had opted for destruction or just against sustainability, their decline was fast and radical, only a few hundred years. This was simply because of destruction of forests and degradation of soils and climate, biodiversity. Once reaching the Iron Age, we soon after underwent the Bronze Age collapse, and epidemics and pandemics would appear on the scene and never leave. Climate change etc. led to hunger and conflict. For me, forest and soil destruction by intensive deforestation and subsequent plowing on a large scale is the main or most simple cause. Just like the presence of lots of domesticated animals, especially if not by fences contained domesticated animals, all adding up to irreversible desertification and aridification. The so recent and so-called Green Revolution seemed to counteract the degradation and loss of general productivity. But since the real causes were never solved, we now have much more of the same thing, and problems or perfect storm. Simply calling it and blaming climate change is a severe underestimation of what got us in decline and left prone to disease, since sustainability was not an issue anymore. Resuming. Total coherence of a global imperium until 4000 BP. And from then on significant hindering of coherence, that was needed to maintain that significant or global empire, since the year 1000 BP. Significant adaptations, also in belied religions, to maintain coherence in at least Western Eurasia had to be made in the year 0 or 2000 BP and certainly before, perhaps the fall of the Roman Empire. While the Global Imperium had all under control, they did not need to be ashamed for destruction and elimination. As an example, Nazi Empire, as long as it gained control and even while it was able to maintain control, were never ashamed for the destruction they practiced. As long as they did not totally fell apart, end of the Second World War, questioning them was probably nearly impossible and perhaps deadly for the people close by. When the Inca-like Global Empire, that includes Phoenicians, no longer had complete control and no complete or absolute success anymore, the Global Empire had to hide their past and distract from the destruction, and its then rather well-known consequences once it was too late, the same consequences that we now seem to neglect, that had happened in the past. This collective hiding, of what now is shameful, most probably was executed by all that participated in power and prolongs until today, and it includes religions and even consensus, and indirectly science. All this makes that we do not see, recognize and verify the destruction that was caused by our direct ancestors and almost consequently the destruction that we modern humans still cause today. It has become a kind of collective blind spot. Environment, soils, climate, and last but not least our genome and its stability, sustainability, were and still are damaged. If our genome does no longer sustain, then we will go extinct. We will not necessarily recognize when this happens, and possibly and probably we will see it only as a health crisis that we will consider solvable, when it is not if we go on neglecting. This will in fact we most probably will not notice, because of the collective blind spot, when it has become irreversible or will lead to unacceptable damage, including to humans and to humanity. Thank you for watching.